Ever since Raging Bull, every Martin Scorsese movie has been edited by Thelma Schoonmaker. The duo began working with 1967's Who's That Knocking on My Door and have developed a close working relationship over the decades they've worked together. Oscar-winning Schoonmaker recently spoke to Yahoo Entertainment about her career, the art of editing, After Hours, Goodfellas, Martin Scorsese, and their latest collaboration, The Irishman. It was a really good interview. There was a lot of information to digest and to chew on. In terms of what was said about The Irishman, Schoonmaker said, "Everybody says, I'm just going to put Goodfellas on for 10 minutes, and then they watch the whole thing. But you know, The Irishman is not Goodfellas, and that's what they think it's going to be. It's not." "Oh, that's interesting," said the interviewer. "It is not Goodfellas. It's completely different. It's wonderful. They're going to love it. But please don't think it's going to be Goodfellas, because it isn't." What's the runtime on The Irishman at the moment? We're still editing it. We don't know how long it's going to be. I'm just intrigued because it feels like Netflix offers a lot more freedom in that respect. They do. They've been great. And I know Wolf of Wall Street had a cut that you guys liked that was 4 hours, and you gradually chipped away. That happens a lot on our movies, and that's okay, because that's the way the movie was made. There was so much improvisation. You can't always say, "Oh, we can't improvise there," or "You have to stop improvising because this scene can only be 5 minutes long." So you have to go with it, and you have to live with it, and let the film tell you what it is. It's very common to have to cut the film down from that length. I guess what I'm asking is, do you still have a sense of discipline with The Irishman, or is there that temptation to keep it longer? It's a different kind of movie. It's episodic. It's not narrative. When you do a narrative film, you're always saying, "Oh well, we could slim that down. We could move the shot. Maybe we should integrate that. Maybe we should flashback with that." That's not the way this movie is. It came together very quickly. It's very different. You will see. It's extremely different, and it really works, which is very exciting. One last question on The Irishman. Scorsese said that Netflix is taking risks with The Irishman. What is the biggest risk on the project for you? Well, we're youthifying the actors in the first half of the movie, and then the second half of the movie they play their own age, so that's a big risk. We're having that done by Industrial Light and Magic Island, ILM. That's a big risk. We're seeing some of it, but I haven't gotten a whole scene where they're young, and what I'm going to have to see, and what Marty's going to have to see is, how is it affecting the rest of the movie when you see them young? Interestingly, we've only been able to screen for very few people because they're wearing some things on their faces and on their clothes that track their movement. Nobody minds. Nobody minds watching them play young because they're gripped. Very few people have seen it because we can't show it to a big audience. But the characters are so strong, it doesn't matter. It's really funny. I don't know what it's going to be like when we get it all. That's the risk. And it's an expensive project. They're taking a risk there. Casino had kind of a weird response in that some people said it wasn't Goodfellas. That's right. But some people said it was too similar to Goodfellas. It was strange. How did you feel about that criticism at the time? Marty has been through terrible criticism all his life. The studios didn't understand him. Taxi Driver, that film almost never got released. He fought and fought and fought. He's been misunderstood for a very long time, and it's been so painful for him. I can't tell you the stories of great directors that he admired who insulted him and said, "You don't have it. Why don't you give it up?" He told me a story recently of a man who looked at a movie and said, "I don't see anything there really." We're talking about one of the greatest directors who ever lived. The rest of the interview drifts away from The Irishman, except one part where they talk about Raging Bull. Scorsese and Schoonmaker having been left in awe when they watched rough cuts of the film, and she said, "When we looked at that, first of all, the power of it was, you don't usually get that power right away in a movie. Usually you have to create it. So that's the kind of thing that goes on when we first see our film. But that one was, oh my. And this one too, The Irishman, it's the same thing. When we looked at it, wow." So some very interesting stuff from Schoonmaker here, And the interviewer was also asking interesting questions that we'd all like to know the answers to, like how long is the film going to be, even if he didn't get an answer. All that stuff about being wowed by The Irishman, that's great, but it doesn't really mean much to me. I mean, what else is she going to say? Yeah, I saw it, it's shit, and these grandpas need to retire. The biggest takeaway for me, in fact something that is quite alarming, is that she hasn't seen a full scene with the de-aged effects. You would think that at this stage of the game she would have seen a few scenes here and there at least, but then again, what do we know about the process? It's most likely, I guess, that the extent of the de-aging happens in stages. The first is obviously the de-aging on the go, which from previous interviews we know was done when they filmed The Irishman, i.e. special cameras were used to make the cast look younger in camera as they were acting. This footage would be sent to ILM, who would work on the effects while the film is editing, but it would cost heaps of money and waste a lot of time to de-age shots and scenes that wouldn't be in the film, so I imagine a great deal of the effects are mastered after the film has finished editing, or at least when a proper cut of the film is finalized, a bit like the way they score music for movies. That's just my guess though. Maybe the effects are almost completed but they're still with ILM and she's editing without the effects in mind. But it was quite startling to learn that she hasn't yet seen a full scene with the actors de-aged. I wonder if it will affect certain scenes being in the film or not. If, say, Scorsese deems that the effects in a certain scene aren't convincing and ILM can't do any better, so he ends up editing the scene differently to accommodate the effects or ditches it altogether. Either way, Scorsese, De Niro and Schoonmaker have all agreed that the de-aging effects are a big risk. Still, we are several months away, plenty of time to get to work on it. Schoonmaker reiterated what Scorsese has already said in that not to expect a remake of Goodfellas. And she also mentioned the film being a lot more episodic. I can definitely see that, going off of the early draft of the script and the book the film is based on. You do get the sense that the film will be carved into specific stages. If we ignore the elephant in the room for a moment, the CGI, I do get giddy at the way everyone involved with the picture talks about how different it is and how they know audiences will love it. It does seem that we are going to be getting a great film. Even if, say, hypothetically speaking, the effects are The Mummy Returns, Scorpion King level horrendous, the other elements of the film are still going to be excellent. I say that without a shadow of a doubt. Scorsese is directing. That's enough of a stamp of approval and relief. I'm sure we'll get a fun, exciting, challenging and moving picture. The only thing up in the air is whether the de-aging special effects will match the rest of the film's quality. And for that, we'll have to wait and see. Thanks for watching.